And to my research, there's no way to beat him dodgeless. Well, it's possible. Initially releasing back in 2009, Punch-Out Wii continued the series' trend of highly telegraphed attacks and an underdog angle. But if there's one thing to say about this game, it's a lot less patient. Here we saw the rise of interception punches, which meant that we got more star opportunities, and there was more of an incentive to even try the strategy. No longer was this just a one-off tactic for King Hippo, but rather a highly viable option for speed strategy and a lot of high-level play combos. From here, the notion of the challenge run was inevitable. And really, it only took a little over 2 months after the game had been released before the question was first posed in a GameFAQs thread. Game Freak 1000 asked the "Is it possible?" query on July 28th of 2009. And, as is the pattern with the internet, it was immediately shut down with a resounding no. But in all seriousness, there were some interesting points brought up out of the gate. Users Mac the Attack and Magnum Child brought up concerns over the title defense fights with Von Kaiser, Bear Hugger, King Hippo, and Aaron Ryan, as well as Bald Bull, Soda Pop, and Macho Man for both versions of their fights. But from here, the op goes down the list and proves Von Kaiser, Bear Hugger, and Aaron Ryan are all possible. And from here, the conversation grew, with new members joining the thread and discussing it within the same month. But the contender fights still caused their fair share of problems due to a lack of counters. At this point though, we get a particular newcomer in the no-dodge scene that really changes things up. Kane Highwind 1, better known as Zallard1 from his YouTube channel, which is packed to the brim with Star Fox 64 videos. Or the more likely notch in his belt, his role as a Punch-Out speedrunner extraordinaire. I mean, this guy beats the games blindfolded on AGDQ. It's crazy stuff. And from his first post in the topic, he already delivers affirmation that contender Bald Bull is in fact possible. And as more of the specifics are settled out in the conversation, Game Freak 1000 uploads his compilation of attempts on YouTube. This time though, under the alias of Dude1690, which happens to be the one that I personally knew him under when I was researching my no-dodge contender run. And it was a pretty comprehensive compilation of the fights. But Soda Popinski and Macho Man were still virtually impossible at this point. But sure enough, enter Mr. L 1193. And what happens here is that we get a detailed representation of what it's like to fight contender Soda Pop without dodging. And what's fascinating about the strategy here is that it reads just like the one we're using to this day. It really goes to show just how beat by beat this fight is in particular. And with this discovery, we got down to just one contender left. Super Macho Man was now the only target on the docket. And for good reason. From the start, Super Macho throws a huge wrench in the run's primary strategy. At first glance, we can't interrupt any of his attacks. Now, worth mentioning is that as Mr. L and Zallard dug into with the thread, his pump it move can be hit for a frame-perfect moment. But what's disappointing here is that these don't score any stun time or the ability to combo him. See, Macho Man at high-level strategies has a combo lock, which can deal some massive damage. But we can't exactly get him into that phase without dodging. Even with that, so many of his moves cut through Little Mac's tactics. His heavy and largely uninterrupted damage output wears away at our health bar and stamina meter with little we can do. Partner this with little chance of scoring any stars, with the only apparent option lying in the photo ops. Both come together and mean it's pretty tough to stay up for the first round, let alone to a decision. Even using the headgear, we can only feasibly get Macho to the mat once per round, none of which is going to cut it. And that's why, for just over 9 years, the route went dormant. The challenge just didn't seem possible, especially by human input, and Contender had to stay with just the one roadblock. That being said, something interesting happened come 2019, and oddly enough, here's where we come into the picture. On January 11th of 2019, I posted my personal attempt at the no-dodge run in the Contender career. And while necessarily it didn't reveal any new ground, I got stuck at Macho just like the rest. The support on the video did bring the question back to light. With the challenge back in the community's mind, we saw the return of Zallard1 to the space. In a recent stream, he sat down for 2 hours of attempts. And while, in his own words, it might have been a very bad idea, we did see an interesting swing to the right direction, much as he explains. A successful attempt would have to use headgear for damage reduction, and net a couple of frame-perfect cancels for his various spin punches, since those cut right through our protection. And honestly, that little bit of interest would have been pretty crazy to see in and of itself. But the community came back full force, and this time, we were going for results. Less than a week after I posted my video, Punch-Out speedrunner frame-by-frame animation threw the ultimate hat in the ring, filming a tool-assisted speedrun. This new video finally answered the questions we'd been sitting on since 2009. And wow, if this is a way to go about it. Sure enough, we'd be using the special headgear we get after 100 losses. But not just for the damage reduction, but also for the fact that it reduces stamina lost per hit from 3 hearts down to 1, a crucial distinction. So we start off round 1 with nothing too complex. All that needs to happen is lowering Macho's health while pocketing a star for the next round. But while that's easy to say, it does require several frame-perfect interceptions to cut his various attacks, which easily delves into humanly impossible territory. And if that seems tough, then in round 2, things heat up like crazy. Starting off the round with a star punch. The task from here has to land an exhausting amount of frame-perfect cancels, all the while riding the line just with the stamina, only barely missing turning purple. To reiterate, this is very much one of the reasons the headgear is absolutely necessary, because without it, we couldn't get to this opportunity. An opportunity which already leaves claustrophobic room for error. And as a painful finish to the round, we can't realistically do enough damage in the time given for a TKO. So we just have to keep him standing until round 3 and we get our hearts back. Luckily enough, the final round lightens the load a little bit. Kick it off with Doc's chocolate bar, and we dive right in. From here, it's just a matter of getting his health that little bit lower than ours, which we can do by going for a star opportunity. And with that, we land a couple more of those frame-perfect cancels, and set up the grounds for the key part in any victory, a glitch. Now, this was already a familiar trick from the title defense version of Super Macho Man. If we intercept his clothesline with a star punch, he just kinda dances in place, and we can take the victory. The same concept apparently applies here in the contender bout, but there's plenty more frame-perfect inputs to worry about. But lo and behold, frame by frame is an absolute savant with this stuff, and we can take our victory with a decision win. Every contender fight in Punch-Out's career mode can now be beaten without ever going defensive. And let me say, ladies and gentlemen, that's great to say. And honestly, I just think it's so crazy cool to see the community come together with this one. And a huge thank you to all of you folks out there for the support in making this come together. So hey, shout out to Zallard and Frame by Frame, as well as the entire Punch-Out community here. And if you want some more dodgeless content, then star punch this one up in the top right for my personal attempt. And make sure to subscribe, because next week, we're taking on title defense. But until then, take care, and you have a good one, alright?